To fill in for Amy, we talked about a few people who were great Jewish performers, and we will continue with that, but we have a different approach. I'm going to start with the 1930s, because there's a big chunk of people from the 30s that we're at that age where I guess we can remember them, or we've read about them, or we heard about them. So these are a list of Jewish American entertainers. What's interesting about this is I can give you the days they were born and died. Some of them, most of them are not here. A lot of them are still hanging around. But more than that, it's amazing, the names, their real names and the stage names. Now, who can tell me why the stage names in the 30s, 40s, and even now? Not as much now. Yes, speak up so we can hear you.
It would tell their ethnicity. How do you say that?
Ethnicity.
Ethnicity.
Right.
They didn't want to be known as Jewish or Italian or whatever.
Right. It definitely wasn't just a Jewish thing. Italians too. In Hollywood or in show business at that time, they were looking for people to be somewhere in the middle, somewhere middle America, which I thought was, to this day I think about it, it's ridiculous, but that's the way it was. I got to tell you a little story, which is a true story. I don't tell stories, I really don't. I mean, I can tell a joke. No, I mean, I'll let you know if it's something. This is true. Please believe me.
No, I believe
You
you.
don't believe me?
No, I know you. I know.
Because if you don't believe me, you know what the repercussions are. You're gone.
And I'm going with it.
And you'll go with her because you need to get home. She's driving. Is that what it is?
No.
Okay. I'll give you the 1968. I walk into a radio station in Babylon, actually no, in Islip, Long Island. WLIX, which is still there, but it doesn't do it. It's not doing what it was. They changed that format. And it was a beautiful music station. I just came. Actually, I was out of college for a while, and I finally got a job close to home, Islip, which is a little schlep from Staten Island.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But it was once a week, and it was on a Sunday, and they played beautiful music. Now, who can describe what beautiful music is?
Classical.
Elevated.
Well, it is beautiful. That's a good point. Classical music is beautiful. But in terms of giving it a formatic name, beautiful music back then meant elevated music or anything close to that. In other words, they'll take a song that was a big hit and they slow it down a little bit.
WPAT used to do that all the time.
WPAT,
right?
WVNJ, those were the stations that were huge, playing beautiful music. Today, there's no such an animal.
What
There's
about easy listening? Wouldn't it-
Well, easy listening. That's another. That's the other name for it. That came a little later. But you're right in the same category. So I walk in as a disc jockey announcer working at one of the stations, and I was a top 40 guy. Does anybody know what a top 40 guy? This fits with the class. I'm going to tell you why.
The top 40 hits of that week?
Top
I
40
believe was the
hits
week
of
like
that.
Yeah.
Well, top 40 is the name. Play the hits.
No.
Best thing we can do, the closest thing we can say is Z100 is one of those stations. They don't call it top 40. They call it. Actually, it's called something that is very similar to that, which is big hits, all hit radio. So here I am at a beautiful music station. I'm
This-
all of 20-something years old. Who knows where I was? Contemporary Hit Radio is what it's called today, CHR. I walk into this beautiful music station. Not the first time I was there, interviewed and got the job. And here's where this connects to what we talk about in this class, or what Amy talks about in this class. Here I was in the office, and he's, by the way, great to have you. You're going to do Sundays from from noon to 6 You're gonna announce the records and you're also gonna do news. Because let me tell you, when you work in radio or TV outside of New York City, outside of LA, outside of Chicago, in those days, you were paid minimum wage. The reason is, everybody wants to be in radio, everybody wants to be in TV, they can always get someone. And so if you're willing to stay with it, travel, do things that you don't even plan on doing. I could do news, I was a news reader, but I didn't have a great journalistic background. But you do as they tell you to do. So I said, fine. And he said, you don't talk too much, we'll tell you when to talk. You play 5 easy listening songs in a row, back announce, give the station first, your name, and what you just heard. All right, simple, much easier than top 40.
Rita.
So, at that same interview, he says to me, Don Carnes, I wonder if he's still alive. Don Carnes told me, Dave, it's nice to have you, he's the program director. Nice to have you here, I think you'll do fine. Any problems, you can always call me at home or speak to someone at home, but you'll be able to run the station yourself. In those days, you go into the station, you run the whole thing. The engineering, you don't touch any of that. It's all set for you. He said, the only problem I have is, are you gonna use your name? And I'm saying, yeah, why? Well, it's tough for me to tell you this, but I'd like you to change your name. What's your middle name? I said, my middle name is Elliot with 1 L. That is my middle name. Good. You're Dave Elliott. And I understood a little of what that meant, but you're more concerned about doing a good show, you know. And so there I go. I spent about 7 months there in the Sundays, and then I get a call from another person who, and for those of you who are here to, you know, you're here for the subject, which I guess, which I'm gonna tell you, there is a little bit of a relationship to bring me into what we're gonna do today. I get a call from another radio station, a top 10, top 40 radio station in Babylon, which is this way. Islip was that way, Babylon was this way. This is a bigger station. They heard me and they said, you know what? You sure you know, you're doing that very well. I'm doing, you just heard over WLIX, you just heard Montavani and the strings playing up, up and away. You're listening to 54 WLIX. See how nice LIX. The guy knew, he said, you come from a top 40 background. I said, I do. Well, you're doing that very well, but you want to come over here? And I said, yes, of course, because I was more interested in that approach. So 3 weeks later, I told the manager at WLIX, I'm moving over to top 40, to WGLI at Babylon. And I go over there, same thing, bigger station, you know, I had to learn a few more things. And then the manager, the program director, sits me down and says, you're not going to use Dave Frankel, are you? I said, no, I'm using Dave Elliott. Why? Oh, because on your application you put in Dave Frankel. I said, yeah, that's my name. He said, okay, that's fine. We all have different names, which is true. Which is true. It didn't bother me. One more job, and this was 2 years later. Oh, 2 years later. And we were still out in Long Island. This was Merrick, Long Island. WGBB.
Getting closer.
They said you can't use Dave Elliott because some people know you from the other stations. So how about if we call you Frank Elliott? Frankel? Frank Elliott. All right, so those days were over. I did that, the names would change, we all know why. Even, I'm gonna go through a list here that, you know, some of you might know them, some of you are gonna be shocked and surprised. But that was the nature of the beast. Yes, you sounded ethnic, you had an ethnic type sound, or not sound, an ethnic name, and it didn't have to be just simply Jewish, it could be Italian. What they wanted more, as I said, Jim Richards, I'm just making that up, that's perfect. Or Lonnie Lonnie Michaels, you know, something that fits, that's quick, sounds young. It's ridiculous, but that's what. So then I went to Jersey Radio, and I did very well there, and I used my old name. By that time, nobody cared. I was able to use Dave Frank. Okay. That being said, and it took a long time to say it, ladies and gentlemen, it took 15 minutes, because you know, that's what I do. I talk, and I don't know when to stop, right?
We know.
And,
We know.
we know, right. So, we're gonna start with 1930s, and I want you to, actually, say what you gotta say. If you kinda find something interesting, talk about it.
Just,
Here we go.
What years was that?
We're gonna start
No,
with
no, when you were changing your name.
68,
Were you the only Jew there?
yes.
Okay, that's what we wanna know.
Yeah, that's another thing too, you know, 1968, that's where I started.
Prior to that, there was Murray the K, there was Bruce Morrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
So
like you
Bruce
do-
is still
Cousin
on.
Bruce, yeah.
Serious.
Murray the K with Murray
I
Kaufman.
listened all the time.
Well,
Oh.
he used Murray the K, it was
Yeah,
much better.
Kaufman.
But everybody knew what his
Yeah,
name was.
in more of a New York urban environment at that time, you could get away with it.
Okay.
But when you're out in the suburbs, it was, I have to say, it was Merrick, not Merrick so much, but Iceland was Lily White, and these were local regional stations. They weren't New York City stations, so you brought up a good point. But a lot of the DJs that we knew in the 60s and 70s changed their names. Bruce Morrow was Bruce Morrow, I know that for a fact.
Howard Cosell?
Howard Cosell was Howard Cosell.
Why would you?
That's okay, Cosell is, you can get around. All right, so let's do this. List of Jewish American entertainers in the 1930s. We'll start with that. Very interesting stuff. First of all, we talked last week about Woody Allen, who was born Allen Stewart Konigsberg. And he was a film director, writer,
Konigsberg.
actor, born in 1935, and he's still with us. So that we talked about. Alan Arkin, that's his name.
That's his name.
That's what it says. And 1934, film actor, director. Richard Benjamin, same thing. Actor and film director. Now, these were a list of Jewish entertainers born in the 30s and maybe in the 40s.
Yeah,
Yes.
what happened to like Eddie Cantor and
Well, this is
Jack
before.
Benny?
I'm doing this by the list of when they were born.
Okay,
And I have those,
but they were born earlier.
absolutely, and I can do those, but I wanted to just make it more contemporary and do this. I can bring them
Alright.
in too. Thinking that we're at the age now where we have a better sense of, you know, we have a better memory of these people.
I remember, I know all of those names.
Here we go. So we had, this is very interesting. Diane Cannon, born Samil Diane Friesen, film, TV actress, editor, producer, and director. And she was on she was on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. In fact, there was rumors that she was going out with him.
She was going out with everybody.
Yeah, sure.
She married to Cary Grant, wasn't she?
Right.
Yes.
What was her name?
Very good. Cary Grant. Diane Cannon.
Cannon? Oh,
But I
yeah.
think she was half Jewish.
Well,
Oh, yeah, that rings a bell.
that counts. Or should we have another list of those who are half Jewish? And then we can do another list, those who are a third.
Can you, let me, can you really be half Jewish? No such thing.
Well, it
Well, I
depends
know-
on the
Born
mother.
You either born, no,
If your mother is Jewish, you're Jewish.
You're Jewish.
That's
As-
it.
As anybody else.
That's right.
That's right.
Oh.
And if your mother isn't, your father is, you're not?
Well, it's according to
No, it's
halacha,
not.
but.
Which
then
is
they-
Let's hear it, let's
Right,
hear it,
and then they
speak
have
up.
different denominations.
I heard that because they said, you know who the mother is, you don't know who the father is, which goes
Right.
back to,
Yes.
you know.
Well,
Interesting.
women used to be raped at the times of the
Right,
Cossacks
well,
and all
so
that,
I'm
so they
saying in
always-
modern times, I mean, if it was
They were all
me,
raped,
I would say I'm half
everybody
Jewish, and no matter where it
None of
came
them
from,
gave
I
it.
would
Well, I
say.
guess people
Yeah.
would refer to half Jewish if your father is and your mother isn't, but it technically, according to the law.
I guess you
Jewish
could
law-
say mixed marriage, right? That would be more
Yeah,
appropriate.
But under the, I even knew that if the mother is Jewish,
Jewish.
Yeah.
that goes. Okay, so now we have Jerry Douglas, born Gerald Rubenstein, TV actress, known to many if you watch soap operas, which are
Yes, I
The
did.
Young and the Restless.
I never, that one I didn't watch.
Okay. Elliot Gould,
Oh, yes.
Elliot Goldstein,
Is he married to Barbra
Yes.
Streisand?
1938 film TV actor. Charles Grodin, who's Charles Grodin, actor and former cable talk show host. This is interesting, I'm not surprised. Estelle Harris, born Estelle Nussbaum, she's the actress in Seinfeld. She played Jerry Seinfeld's
she's
mother.
funny, yeah.
Very
Oh,
funny.
Yeah,
Very
very
funny.
funny.
And she, before Seinfeld, I know for a fact, she's a character actor. And she could play that character and could also tone it down a little bit. These are, by the way, character actors stay in showbiz longer than some of the big stars. If you're a very good character actor, you're gonna get a lot more work than you might not get paid as much as the big stars. Okay, am I moving around too much?
No, just stay in the middle.
Stay in the middle. Okay.
He's a fidgety thing.
All right. Then we have Judd Hirsch, born 1975, no name change, that's him, Taxi, Numbers. So you find that even back then, people just went ahead with their names and didn't care if it wasn't so elongated, or, you know, if it wasn't one of these real Feigelbaum or something like that. That's interesting, isn't it? And so we continue now, here's Dustin Hoffman,
Oh.
born 1937, two-time Oscar-winning actor. Harvey Keitel, real name, and a great actor. He's a great actor. And did many characters and had some big parts too. Then there's Yaphet Kotto, born in 1937, African-American actor, son of Cameroonian Crown Prince of whatever it is. He had a role. Cameroons, right? What did I say? Cameroonians?
Yeah, Cameroon.
You're right. I changed the name. Cameroonian.
You said African American?
Yes.
French West Africa.
Fresh, yeah, and he was, he had a role in Alien.
He was on one of those police programs.
A lot, right,
He was an
right.
inspector.
That's right, he played a lot of different parts.
Yeah.
Martin Landau,
Oh, yeah, wow.
Oh.
now Michael Landon, born Eugene Morris Horowitz.
Oh, well,
Bonanza.
really, didn't know
Yep,
that.
actor, producer, and director. You
Like
take
that.
one, and you take one look at Michael Landon, who's now deceased, you would say, you know, he's from the West, you know, but that's the way it was years ago. Louise Lasser,
Oh,
she
yes.
was in Mary Hartman, Mary
Yes,
Hartman. She
yeah,
played the
yeah.
lead stage, film, TV, born in 1939. Here's another great character actress, Piper Laurie, who was
Really?
born Rosetta Jacobs in 1932. See? Yeah. Linda Lavin,
Oh, yeah. she's
born
a-
1937, stage, film, and TV actress. Well, you might know this one, but this is a shocker. Steve Lawrence was
Oh.
born,
Yes.
anybody know?
Yes.
Frisco.
Sidney Leibowitz,
Leibowitz.
singer, actor on the Carol Burnett Show. Of course, he was
Yeah.
also a singer before that. And here's one who's no longer with us, but I remember growing up, watching her when I was a kid, and she was really so sweet. She had good camera presence, good stage presence. And that was, who was? Oh, Shari Lewis,
Oh.
born Sonia Phyllis Hurwitz,
Sharon.
ventriloquist, puppeteer, and children's TV show
She
host.
died young.
Yeah, she was, yeah. And then we had Hal Linden, born Harold Lipschitz. And we kind of know why he changed it. Actor and TV director, and also a great role in Barney Miller. Tina Louise,
Yes.
wasn't she in the?
Gilligan's Island.
Gilligan's Island. Born 1934, model, singer, and film TV actress. So some of these don't surprise us, some do. Now, of course, Jackie Mason, how could you miss? But he was born Yakov Moshe Maza.
Oh, my God.
So there you go.
There you go.
Maza, M-A-Z-A, so now he probably
Mason.
Mason Fitz, yes.
His brother was a rabbi. I
Yes.
actually met him you know, you probably said.
Yeah, I went to
wasn't
his
funny.
service on the New Year from his brother
Oh, you
in
did?
my mother's condominium at the time, when they had it at the clubhouse.
Wow.
So he was wonderful.
Good, now,
That's
but I had
right.
heard that Jackie was planning to become a rabbi, or was in fact one. I don't-
Yeah, he was,
Yeah,
but he didn't practice.
that family was into that.
Yeah. Then, of course, we have Paul Mazursky, not a film director and actor. Barry Newman.
Wasn't he a wrestler?
No.
No, there was a Mazursky.
Yeah, he was,
There
yeah.
was Killer Mazursky or something.
Right,
This is a
yeah.
He
different
played
guy.
a tough guy.
Killer
Right.
Kowalski.
Mike deserves.
Killer Kowalski, but there was also a Mazursky who was also a wrestler, but not this gentleman. Leonard Nimoy,
Oh,
He
Star
was.
Trek.
Star Trek.
he played Spock on Star Trek. A friend of mine's second cousin was Suzanne Plachette.
Ah.
That was her name,
She was
and
great.
she was on the Bob Newhart show, very attractive woman.
Yeah.
She
Yes.
played up, she was up in the Catskills, she sort of was, this friend of mine worked with her up in the Catskills. She was a counselor or something. You know, speak.
Her family lived in, I guess, Midwood or Homecrest in Brooklyn.
Midwood,
And they were members of my uncle's synagogue.
isn't that something?
And I remember him telling me a story years and years ago.
Tell us.
I forget who it was that she married. That blonde Troy Donahue, did she marry?
Oh.
They were very upset.
Oh,
He
because
said
she
the
married.
parents were very
Oh, is that
upset.
interesting? So she married
Yes, my uncle knew
Troy
him,
Donahue.
Troy, and they were very upset about it.
Right.
That's what my uncle said.
Yeah, but Troy Donahue used to be Troy Lipschitz.
Oh, my
No.
goodness.
For real?
No,
No, he's
he's-
kidding.
Don't believe that.
He's practicing his act.
Oh,
He's gonna be on the stage.
leaves in 10 minutes.
It leaves in 10 minutes. The interesting thing about Troy Donahue was, he was in A Summer Place.
Yes.
That great,
Oh.
one of the
that was
worst
wonderful.
movies of all time, but a movie that I saw, because as I keep telling my classes, the song came out
Yeah.
2 months,
There's a
3
summer
months,
place.
4 months before the movie became a number
Yes.
one song, Mercy
Right.
Faith.
Yeah.
Talk about
Mercy
easy
Faith,
listening.
yeah.
Mercy Faith
I like
and
that.
Theme from A Summer Place,
Yeah.
a great piece of music.
Very
Yeah.
beautiful.
Oh.
And she played
Sandra Dee.
Sandra Dee,
Oh.
Sandra Dee, and he was this very good-looking guy, and of course, the story was so predictable, and,
I like.
but 1958, when that movie came out, it was considered for the teenagers and young adults, and some theaters didn't show it in some parts of the country. Why? Because there's one scene where this is a fact, they're out in the coast of Maine, both families own a cabin or something to that effect, if I can remember. A summer house, well, yeah, that's it. And it's beautiful, they show you the beautiful
Oh, I love
Maine.
that picture.
And he has a telescope, and one day he sees this, who the heck is this beautiful, cute little girl? And he wants to meet her, and she doesn't know she's being seen through a telescope. One thing leads to another, they become friends. Both families knew each other, but both families didn't like each other. And it's not because of their ethnicity, they just didn't like each other.
Yeah.
So what happens is, Troy Donahue meets Sandra Dee, and they hang out with each other, and there's a scene where the families are fighting, and they say, we shouldn't be involved, let's go, we can't go anywhere, but let's just hang out, forget about the families. And they go into the water, and they're swimming along the shore, and they both swim into a cave. They both swim into a cave. The camera's on that cave. The water there's rippling water. And then you hear the theme from A Summer Place. And they stay with it for a while. I'm saying as a
it was
kid,
gorgeous
I'm saying,
song.
what's the, and then it hit me later, till, when I turned 60, I realized that I didn't understand what was happening in that cave.
Oh, yeah.
But you know why? Because the whole gist of the story is she becomes pregnant. And these two families hate each other. I mean, it's a real B movie, maybe a C movie, But I went to see it because of the song and because my friend said, we gotta see it.
Scenery was
Oh, it's-
beautiful. in
Scenery
that.
was beautiful, but this is a racy film, and it wasn't racy at all. It was just the concept
Yeah, even
of
as an instrumental.
preteen or pre-marriage sex, which is in a cave,
In a cave. Under the ocean.
which is, what adds to it in a cave. I mean, you could drown. That was my concern. All right, moving right along. So we talk about, well, she's married to Suzanne Plachette. Here's a, Joan Rivers, of course. Joan
Oh,
Alexandra Molinsky Sanger
Yes.
Rosenberg.
Yes.
Right.
Love
Yeah.
her, love
And we know what happened to her, unfortunately.
Yeah.
George Siegel, we always knew that, at least I did. William Shatner,
Oh.
yes, he was,
I don't like
Susan, he doesn't like you either.
it. I know.
I spoke to him.
I know,
He
you're
says, when I
right.
see you, he says, hello, but we can't connect. And you're thinking I did say that to him, no, I'm just kidding. Susan Strasberg,
That was her name, right?
that was her name. Dame Elizabeth Taylor, we spoke of her,
Yes,
spoke about her
that's
last week.
Right.
Oscar-winning English-American film actress and sex symbol. Well, she had the most beautiful eyes.
Yes.
Gene Wilder was born Jerome Silberman, actor and comedian, and he was in a lot of the movies produced by what's his name, the great
Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks. Thank you. So that's about 1930s. Let's go to 1940s. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yes.
With all those names, why would they ever say that the Jews are running Hollywood?
That's true. Then, of course, there's Richard Belzer.
Yep.
Richard Belzer
Get a
didn't
job.
change his name,
Mm.
and he's in a lot of the Law and Order.
Oh,
Yes,
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 yes.
yes.
Yeah,
Went
love
to
that
see
show.
Richard Belzer
Yeah.
at
He's
the
a skinny guy.
Cafe Wa back in the
Oh,
1968, 67, and walked
Nice.
into that place, very small place. We couldn't stop laughing. This is a very funny man, and he worked his way up to an actor. And if you ever get a chance to see him, he does once in a while do something in New York. Unfortunately, to get into one of these comedy clubs is not so cheap. I still go once in a while. But when back in the old days, man, it costs $5, you get 2 drinks, and you sit up front and they're trying their stuff out. Richard Belzer is a very
I never
funny
knew
guy.
there was a comedian.
No.
I love him on the show.
Yep. Okay, moving right along, Louis Black, another stand-up comedian.
Oh, he's hysterical.
He's
I
hysterical.
never
He's-
heard of him.
Hysterical.
You never heard of him.
No, no.
He does the radio commercials for one of the lottery games.
Oh.
And I'm trying to think well, he's been on HBO. He's a stand-up comedian.
Yeah,
He's
it's-
very,
my son
very
probably knows
upset.
him.
He's
Yeah.
very
My
upset. He
son probably
screams.
knows
And,
him. Yeah.
He has his specials on
Oh.
HBO.
Oh, what?
I've seen specials of him
Yeah,
on HBO.
yeah. One of the funniest guys of all time, also all time, is Albert Brooks. And because I remember Albert Brooks starting out, he was hysterical. He has a great brain, terrific writer. He wrote bits for TV. He wrote a lot of bits for Saturday Night Live when it first went on the air. And his name is Albert Lawrence Einstein, or Einstein. Stand-up comedian, actor, director. Everybody know who Albert Brooks is?
No.
No. Really not?
Is he related to Mel Brooks at all? or-
No.
No.
Albert Brooks put together a few movies. He put a movie together with Debbie Reynolds. He was the son of Debbie Reynolds, and he was a single guy. And Debbie Reynolds was terrific. This was after all of her troubles. They gave her a movie role. And he became a mama's boy, he didn't want to. And yet he had to respect his mother, and it was so funny, because he's living with his mother as an older man, and there was so many things that connect. It doesn't have to be a Jewish household, but there was so many funny things. I'm surprised some of you don't, then he was in a lot of television stuff.
He was in a movie with Douglas. Their children were getting married. Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Michael is some kind of agent or,
Uh-huh, I know what you mean, I can't think of the name.
yeah,
Very funny guy, and a stand-up, he started out as a stand-up. He would do
he's very funny.
little things that were really very clever. Okay. Of course, James Caan didn't change his name,
His mother.
played in The Godfather and a lot of other movies. Nell Carter, singer and
Oh,
film, stage,
yeah.
and TV actress. 1948 to 2003 she died, I didn't realize. Yeah, she did, right.
Yeah.
She was black, she was a black.
Black, right.
Like, yeah, she died when.
All right, now this is funny. Peter Coyote, born Rachmil Pinchas Ben Moshe Cajon, E-I-E-I-O. Actor and author. Let me tell you something about Peter Coyote. He is a great actor. He's a very good character actor, but he's more known for his narration on public television. He does nature and all of those things, and I know a lot about this. Actors get these gigs because they are all trained in acting. One of the things actors and actresses train is voice training. So if you've got a naturally, a strong voice or an interesting voice, you're a film actor or, showbiz person who's working with you will train to get the most mileage out of your voice. Most actors have natural pipes, they call it. Just natural, the way they stand and their voices, because they did some of the great television actors started in radio. You have radio actors doing, Jack Webb, who did Dragnet, played about 10 different people during his career in radio. And Peter Coyote still works and does a lot of narration and does get a couple of movies every now and then. Billy Crystal, born in 1947, and of course he's Billy Crystal. That's not to say somewhere in the family there might have been a longer name, but we know him as Billy
That
Crystal.
doesn't necessarily sound Jewish.
No, it doesn't.
No.
Doesn't.
A lot of these people, they don't sound Jewish.
No, and like Larry David uses his middle
Oh,
name,
he's
just
the,
like I can imagine he does, or maybe it is David.
some-
The last name can be David. I mean, there are some people who use that name, that's their name. Richard Dreyfuss. All right, Bob Dylan, born Robert Allen Zimmerman. Singer, songwriter, author, musician, poet, also appeared in several films. I assume his mother was Jewish, but you'd never know it listening to him or looking at him, but then again, it doesn't matter. That's, it's all timing. Page 2. Okay. Bob Einstein, maybe some of you know him, writer and comedian known as Super Dave.
Oh, yeah.
Bob Einstein was a writer for a lot of sitcoms and actually played some roles too. You have to know the roles and then you get to see what he looks like, and he's a very talented guy. Well, here's one it makes sense, the name is Jewish, but now that we know it, Donald Fagen. Can anybody help me with that? Anybody know top 40 rock and roll music or folk music or? All right. Donald Fagen, musician, singer, songwriter, cultural critic, author, columnist, writer, and co-founder of the famous jazz rock duo Steely Dan. And if you heard some of those songs, he wrote them. Some of their songs were terrific. Do you remember Steely Dan?
Yes, I do.
No, okay, I'm just checking.
Yeah, I remember.
I want to know. It's kind of interesting. We're all in a same. I'm going to stop. I won't walk away. We're all in the same. Hi, Mom. We're all in the same age group. 20 to 50, right? So, some of these people.
When have you been drinking?
What have I
I
been
want
drinking?
some.
Is right. All right, Harrison Ford, born Harrison Ford. That's interesting. Bonnie Franklin.
Ah, yes.
That shit is good.
Maybe it was Bonnie Frankel at one time. I
Yeah,
don't know,
was
but it's
it?
Bonnie Frankel.
She did, what was that?
One day at a
One
time.
day at a time.
One day at a time. Art Garfunkel, kept his name, singer, songwriter. Paul Michael Glazer,
Ah, yes.
Starsky and Hutch.
Starsky.
Christopher Guest, this is another genius. Christopher Guest, comedian, screenwriter, composer, musical, film director, actor, Spinal Tap member. This guy and a bunch of other, I shouldn't say bunch, but a group of actors and actresses got together and made about 4 or 5 films with the same cast. Spinal Tap was their first effort. They also did the film about the Pet Cemetery. See if you can remember.
Well, Stephen King.
No, you're right, it's Pet Cemetery, Stephen King. This was about these pet cemeteries in Hollywood.
Oh.
And it wasn't a documentary, it was very funny. A couple of people who played were so convincing, you know, they were so into their animals that when they die, especially you know, people who have some bucks want the best for their pet, and that's what it was about. It's very, is there anything we should,
No.
can I write your prescription for that? So, Christopher Guest, okay, Christopher Guest, Goldie Hawn,
Oh,
I love Bob.
laughing.
and some other movies, you know.
Yeah.
Barbara Hershey, born
Oh,
Barbara
she was good.
L.
She was good.
Hertzstein. Hertzstein, I guess. It could be Hertzstein,
Yeah.
Hertzstein. Actress. Uh, Did she die? Is she saying?
No, I don't
No.
think
She died in the film.
Ah,
No.
She was in the film, Barbara Hershey with,
He was a fantastic actor.
Very good.
Beaches.
Beaches, yes.
Beaches
Oh,
with,
yes, with
Great.
Bette Midler.
great,
Oh.
great movie.
Yes.
Bette Midler was Jewish too, right?
Yes. Great movie though, Beaches. How many of you have seen that? You gotta see it, and I'm telling you,
Very sad.
even if you never cried in your life, you will
Very
cry.
sad.
But well done.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving right along, ladies and gentlemen. We have Madeline Kahn, who was in a lot of
Funny.
funny movies. And again, another one with the what's his name? Oh God.
Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks. Thank you.
Hysterical.
I forget names because I'm thinking ahead. I'm not making excuses. I think ahead. How can I add a little something, and by the time I do that, I forget the name. So, and it's probably some memory loss too, because there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, that's wrong. You know, I'm close to 85 years old. All right, so we talked about Madeline Kahn. Very funny.
Yeah.
She was in
You give me my.
she was in a lot of his movies.
Didn't she play the one in Taxi, what was her name?
No,
No, that wasn't
no.
her?
Somebody like that. I
Oh,
know.
but
She was in that picture with, Ryan,
Ryan O'Neal.
O'Neal was hysterical.
Yeah, and also in Saddles, Blazing Saddles.
Hysterical.
All right, we have Gabe Kaplan,
Oh,
Welcome
welcome
back,
back, Otter.
Welcome Back, Kotter. Andy Kaufman. I saw him
He's funny.
at the Cafe Wa. Andy, when he started out, he was out of, I mean, he was in another orbit, but very funny. And of course, he died very young of a lung cancer where he never smoked a cigarette in his life. But he was very Lainey Kazan
Oh,
was
yeah.
born Lainey Levine,
Love her.
actress and singer. Robert Klein, no reason to change, stand-up comedian, occasional actor. He was very funny when he started. He still can be funny. He's using some of the same material, but if you ever want to see him in a stand-up, he's really very clever guy. Kevin Kline, stage and film actor. Here's Michael Lenbeck, good actor on Broadway. Richard Lewis, comedian and actor. He's gonna be,
He's a little crazy.
he's a little crazy. Richard Lewis was actually in some of those,
He was on that,
David.
sitcom with Jamie Lee Curtis, they were very funny.
right, and then he's also played his
He was in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Curb Your Enthusiasm. He played a friend of
Yeah.
David, Hal, you know. What was his state, what was the,
He played, Curb Your Enthusiasm with Larry David.
Larry David.
His routine was the man from hell or the girl
Right.
from hell. or
Always
the
looking to,
sucker
nervous,
from hell.
erotic, depressed, funny,
Yeah.
very funny. Judith White,
Uh,
who's the boss,
She's fantastic.
like,
Peggy Lipton, remember her?
Yes.
Actress
Oh, yes.
in the Mod Squad.
yeah.
And, oh, I was friends with a cousin of hers. I don't,
Yeah,
they were like first cousins, she told me.
well, she told you.
Yeah, I don't know. He said it was a cousin.
They could tell you anything.
That's
I had
hearsay.
relatives that told me they're wealthy.
Hearsay, not admissible.
And when I needed, I had relatives that told me they were wealthy. When I needed some bucks, I'd call them up and say, who said that?
You know,
I said that?
Very strange. She was born in Germany, and she showed me a picture, you know, when she was a baby. And her father was in Germany when they were killing the Jews. I don't know how they survived just being regular citizens. I never questioned her.
They must have changed their name.
I don't know. It's very strange.
Which reminds me, and we're getting off the subject, but there was was it HBO?
Yeah.
Was it HBO this week that they
Yeah.
did the survivors of Auschwitz?
Oh, I didn't see it.
It'll be repeated,
We're singing that.
and a lot of the people on it, on that program, obviously survived, and some of them were just plain lucky.
Mhm.
And then others had some other thing, somebody played
Oh, a quick
the
story.
violin.
At the JCC on Arthur Road, there was a lady there, she was about 87, she was a twin. And what happened was she passed as a non-Jew. And she was very fortunate, people helped her. But her sister was in the camps, but her sister survived. It was a very interesting story because the mother had to decide which daughter was gonna pass as a non-Jew.
Oh,
And
Who
she
was that?
selected
Did I
her.
know?
Sophie's Choice, right?
I don't know, no, this
No,
is
it's
a
similar
lady.
to, no, but it's similar to, that's right, the bottom line to Sophie's Choice was about that. But, if you get a chance, if you have HBO, which you might have, check to see, they do a lot of repeats, and it's something you should see if you can handle it. It's not, they don't show you too much or anything of the horrible environment. They talk about these people who tell you their story. It's very, very interesting.
Just as an aside.
Yep.
I
Wow.
grew up and worked in a beauty parlor, and, so she introduced me to this woman, I used to kid around with her, an elderly woman. And then I found out that she was, in Schindler's List, she was the woman that took care of the kids.
Oh.
And when I found that out, I was like in awe, and I stopped kidding around, you know, I was like, wow.
Well, you know, you bring up a good point. A lot of towards the end of that movie, some of the survivors were in that movie at the end. That's one of the most potent, I mean, that movie
It was wonderful.
didn't miss a beat. I mean, it told the story. It was just so moving. The acting was superb. The photography, it's one of the top, in my book, you should read my book. No, in my book, top 10 movies of all time. I feel that way anyway. All right, so we move along here, and we have, who do we have? Bette Midler, singer, actress, comedian, also known as the Divine Miss M. Born in 1945, she's my age. Which is 30. Let's see. Here's a guy, David Preval, from The Sopranos. He was an actor, but you know, these are people, as I said, character actors. Terrific. That's funny. Gilda Radner, of course. Yeah.
Wasn't she married to the other guy?
Yes, she was married to the guy,
Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder. Very good.
That was Saturday Night Live, which I don't watch, but I know.
There's an article about her, she was really brilliant.
Very brilliant. You know, she just was so talented, of course. Bob Reiner, actor, director, producer, writer. Gary Shandling, comedian and actor.
Yes.
Harry Shearer, actor, comedian, writer, and radio host. Harry Shearer was also one of that group of people who did these very interesting movies. They hung together. It was like a fraternity and sorority. And these were movies that, as I said, the one about the Pet Cemetery in Hollywood, and also they did a takeoff on a folk singer. The Way of the Wind or something. Can somebody help me with that? No, nobody can help me with that.
The Wayward Wind?
Not the Wayward Wind.
Oh,
It was a good song, though.
that was
Yeah.
a good
Yeah.
song.
Yeah,
If
what
you
the
can't help
wayward
me-
wind
Look, I'm helpless, so if you can't help me, I'm.
What's the
Yeah.
name?
Huh?
What's the name? What name is it?
Oh, the name, yeah, this is, who are we talking about?
Harry Shearer.
Harry Shearer, thank you, fine, look that up and see if he was, thank you, I appreciate
How do
that.
you spell his last name?
Shearer.
Okay.
Shearer. As we move along, we have Paul Simon,
Oh, Simon and Garfunkel.
Barbara, we know that, two-time Academy Award-winning singer and actress.
Right.
Yes.
I went to school with
I say Barbara, I didn't even have to mention the last name.
I went to school with her and she lived in my development
Wow.
in the Vanderbilt.
Now, you went to school with her, I need to ask,
Don't ask.
tell me,
I did.
what did you speak with her? Did you sense that she was
She
gonna be a
did
star?
not have a good childhood.
She did not have a good
No.
child,
My father died when she was very young,
right?
and it was her and her brother.
And her grandmother, thought she wouldn't amount to much because she wasn't too attractive. But
Right,
she
right,
surprised everyone.
She lived closer to North Shore Avenue.
no string,
Yeah, I lived in the Vanderbilt, and she lived in the Vanderbilt too, but she was a year younger than myself.
okay,
So, we both went to same public school. She was very close to my girlfriend. She used to walk home with my girlfriend to
Isn't that
our
something?
apartment, so she wouldn't have to be by herself, because her mother worked. And then as she got older, when I say older, when she was in her teenage years, she worked in a Chinese restaurant. She made herself up with a tail, and she worked in a Chinese, she is a very talented person.
Oh my
it starts young, you
Yeah,
know, there's all
very,
kinds
very
of.
talented.
Yeah.
She had beautiful, she's not a nice person, but she's very, very.
When do you hear she's not a nice, what she is now, or when she was growing up?
No, even when she was a kid.
Yeah,
But, from what I hear, my girlfriend kept in touch with her until she reached doing Funny Girl.
right,
She
right.
sent my girlfriend tickets, and then after that.
Well, you know, I've heard this a lot with a lot of people, and people I know who knew certain people. In their younger ages, they're focused, and they're gonna be focused, and that's
Right.
all, and they'll leave people behind.
Yeah,
It's not that they just don't wanna deal with that, they wanna
Mhm.
deal with their careers.
Career,
It doesn't,
right.
no, it's it's not an excuse to be nasty, but
Right.
sometimes they just are not needed anymore, it's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, here's Jeffrey Tambor,
No.
another
Tambor.
great character actor.
Tom Thumb? Is that?
Huh?
He was in Tom Thumb, right? Jeffrey?
Yes, but he was also in a lot of, he played, so many different characters.
Was he on the Bob Newhart show?
Yes, he was, very
West
good.
Side Story?
Bob
Was he in this?
Newhart story, Bob Newhart show.
L-Y-N.
He was in Arrested Development, Hellboy, a few other things. Jessica Walter, film, TV actress, don't mistake her with the Walters, but Jessica Walter, film, TV actress, and she too is in Arrested Development. Leslie Ann Warren, stage, film, TV actress. Anson Williams,
Oh, I know.
Happy Days.
Yeah, Happy Days.
Isn't that something?
He was one of the kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Jewish. Henry Winkler,
Oh, yeah.
and here's one, Jill St. John, you know, was that, I'm pretty sure, maybe that was his name, I don't know, it's hard to say. Sometimes you do get maybe she's from Canada, I don't know, you could be Jewish. Look, Dreyfus is a Canadian, he was born and raised in Canada. But Dreyfus, I grew up with a girl, Dreyfus.
There was a Frenchman named Dreyfus, right?
Right?
He was related to him.
Who was the Bonds?
Who?
Bonds was,
Henry
Winkler.
Winkler.
Henry Winkler.
Yeah, right. So there you go, that's it. Next week we can do, I'm gonna do some
You're
more.
missing two.
Who? Okay, we're about to, all of a sudden, I'm so happy, I'm glad you, but now you're the director.
I'll let you know when it's on
I
cable.
do go on and on. Thank you so much, see you next week.